Good morning, guys. I hope you've all had a nice Christmas. And Ebird is back with the first of my reviews from 90 Day Fiance. This is season 7, episode 8, Judgement Day. And for my first review, I'm going to be covering Micheal and Giuliana and Angela and Michael. I'm so sorry guys that this is late, but I'm going to try and get through these reviews over the next couple of days. And here's my latest take on what's happening this week. Guys, Juliana, I thought she had no game. It seems as if she's managed to secure the bag from Michael in the event of a divorce. So later on I'm going to be talking about how it went down. But first up I'm going to be talking about Angela and Michael. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel for regular reviews and a heavy dose of sarcasm. So first up, Angela and Michael. And today it seems it's D-Day. Angela's waiting for a call from Michael and he's going to let her know if he's been successful in his visa application. She tells her granddaughter she wants to look half decent for when Michael calls. And who knew Angela had the money for plastic surgery? And as she's putting on her makeup, she tells us if Michael's successful, he'll be on a plane from Lagos to America in 1 week's time. And she goes on to say, I've been waiting for 2 years for this call from Michael. Interesting, because you only applied for your K1 visa, as I remember it, about a year ago. So it seems as if Angela was waiting before she'd even applied. And with such an appalling grasp on how the visa applications work, I wonder how things are going to go. And then the phone starts to ring. Angela's excited, she starts screaming. Her little granddaughter's there and they're excited to find out what Michael's going to say. I can already tell you, Angela. But hey ho, take the call. And unfortunately for this couple of star-crossed lovers, it doesn't look like great news. And guys, when we looked at Michael's face, we could automatically tell it was bad news. But Angela doesn't seem to notice. What? She says. And then Michael shows her the letter and it says he's ineligible to receive a visa. What does that mean? Ineligible, Angela, means he's not eligible for a visa, not allowed to come to the United States on a K1. That's what that means. It means that just like us, the embassy has managed to deduce that your relationship's fraudulent. They don't believe that Michael wants to come to America for the love of me more Angela. They believe that Michael wants to come to America for other reasons. Unfortunately, that is what that means. What this means, Angela, is that very likely the American embassy have been watching the last 3 seasons of 90 Day Fiance. They realise that you're not a match. They realise you're not in love. They've acted with a humanitarian response for Michael. Even though there's great opportunity in America, they know very well that it would be inhumane to move Michael into your house. That, Angela, is what that means. And Angela, as usual, decides to take any responsibility away from herself and she says, you got denied? No, Angela, you both got denied. It's not all on Michael. And I do actually feel very sorry for Michael. He starts crying and Angela's like, baby, Michael, look at me. Angela, that's no help. And Michael's genuinely in tears. He can barely speak. He says the time we've spent, the money we've spent, the love we have. Actually, did he say that? No, he didn't. The time and the money. That's why Michael's upset. And then Angela starts strategizing. She said, I can't believe this. I'm absolutely disgusted. You can bet your ass I'm going to find a loophole. They can't stop our love. And Michael explains that they asked him why they didn't get married in Nigeria. And he explained that Angela's mother wanted to witness them getting married. Last time I saw Angela's mother, she seemed to think the whole thing was kind of a joke. But who knows? And Angela's very mad. I'm a single parent taxpayer and it's my right to get married in America. And she tells us she meets all the criteria. Her background, her finances, she can afford to keep Michael. And she said there's nothing more to give. What do they want? A porno? Angela, permission to ask Michael from Micheal and Giuliana to record it for you. He's shown a previous desire for wanting to direct such a video. Or maybe we can speak to Porno Granny. I'm sure she has a few contacts for you. I'm sure if you ask TLC nicely, they'll give you the video from before. You know, your last porno. The one that included chocolate body paint and Donald Trump underpants. It's really something the Ebird wishes she could unsee, but unfortunately, it's imprinted on my brain. And she tells Michael, I'm a fighter. I'm going to go and see a lawyer as soon as possible. Together we'll get this sorted out. I love you, Michael. Do you love me? And Michael says, yeah, I do now. Yeah. And that's where we leave them for the first part. And next time we see Michael, it's in Lagos and he's off to see, guess who? The goofballs. And Michael, I have a tip for you. If you're upset about not being allowed to be with Angela for the rest of your days and you want a bit of sympathy, the people that she swilled in a bar and shouted at and disparaged are probably not the people who are going to give it to you. Cue the goofballs, otherwise known as Ade, Peter and Kunde. And TLC treats us to yet another VT. You are too possessive and bossy. And Angela swilling the drink over him. And it's still quite obviously at the forefront of his mind, because when Michael sits down with the goofballs, that's what they bring up immediately. Things go left real quick and they start calling her trashy. And they explain that in Nigeria, a woman shouldn't behave that way. Goofballs. In America, and the UK and the rest of the world. People shouldn't act that way. However, you must admit, goofballs, you are always giggling, and even though they can see that Michael's quite upset, they're still finding it quite funny and they're not advising him. And Michael actually says to them, if you really cared about me the way that a friend should care about me, you wouldn't sit there and laugh, you would give me advice. Michael, they've given you advice already. Leave Angela. And then the goofball starts saying, it's obvious she's trashy, obvious. So Michael keeps saying, why do you say she's trashy? Why do you say she's trashy? Michael, even we think she's trashy. But nevertheless, I agree, the goofball shouldn't be saying this, because they realise Michael just wants a better life for himself. And Michael smashes the drink out of one of their hands and he storms off, and they're all arguing and squabbling, and Michael storms off saying, I don't want him around me. And I get it, come on, he's just been denied. Cut him a little slack. He knows you don't like Angela. He knows he thinks she's trashy. And to be fair, he knows she's trashy. But Michael's got a mission, so guys, help him on his mission. One of his friends comes and pulls him back, and he only agrees to go and sit back down if Addy is nowhere near him. And finally Michael goes and sits back down with them. And in interviews with the producers, the remaining goofballs tell us that they're worried about Michael and they think he's making a massive mistake with Angela. And that's where we leave this couple for this week. So guys, let me know what you think. Will Angela manage to turn this round? I really don't think so. But next up, the one you've been waiting for, Micheal and Giuliana. And the couple are taking Michael's kids, Max and Cece, indoor rock climbing. So as the kids are doing the indoor rock climbing, Michael makes a comment to Giuliana that Max is so strong. And Michael says, Max is even stronger than I am. Giuliana seizes her opportunity and says, you've lost muscle, you need to build your muscles. And Michael says, yeah, I know. And she goes on to remind him that he was more muscular before. You've lost a lot of muscle. And I think this is part one of Giuliana's breakdown of Michael, because I think she's making sure that he realises, you're not in tip-top condition, I am. This is what you're purchasing. And guys, look at Michael's face when Giuliana's telling him, you must train your muscle. He's like, yeah, I know I do. And he genuinely looks peed off. And again, I noticed Giuliana's linguistic mistakes always come out when she's trying to pretend to be sweet and innocent. I'm quite sure she knows the words muscles, but just like prenut, but because she's trying to do it sweetly and innocently, she throws in a little mispronunciation and widens her eyes like a little kid. Michael falls right into the trap, and this from Giuliana is a gaslight. Giuliana, you've got a 40-odd-year-old father of two from Greenwich. What did you expect from him? The Rock? And right off the back of that little bit of conversation, Giuliana then says, can we talk about the prenup? Well done, Giuliana, the first time that you've managed to pronounce it correctly. What a turn up for the books. So slam dunk number one was Giuliana talking about Michael's muscles and just reminding him, I'm worth more than you in the look stakes. Now on to number two. Shall we talk about the prenup? And she reminds him yet again, when you left me before, you said you'd take care of me and you just disappeared. You were nowhere to be found. I needed help and you weren't there. So I don't trust your word on looking after me, because you've already proved to me once that you're not a man of your word. And yet again, Michael was lost for words. His face showed that he was really peed off, and he didn't really have a proper answer for Giuliana. He explains in a chat to producers that his friends and family were in his ears, telling him that Giuliana was just in it for the money. Hello? And so without a word to Giuliana, he just called her and said, this is off, forget about it, and he disappeared. And Michael shows his weakness when he says, it didn't even feel right breaking up with her, but I was just under so much pressure that I just did it. And Giuliana tells Michael straight up, when it happened before, my financial situation was terrible and I do not want that to happen ever again. And unlike Michael, at least I can give it to Giuliana, she's being dead straight. And she explains in a roundabout way that just hearing Michael say, I'll take care of you, means nothing to her, because all that means is that he has ultimate control over her. Cue the word independent. And Michael was speaking about the mediator when he said, I know her line of questioning, Giuliana, made you feel helpless and made you feel like a victim of something that hasn't even happened yet. One, Michael, it has happened once before. And two, what the mediator did was made Giuliana realise everything is in your hands. Everything is your decision. And Giuliana said, no, I'm not saying that I'm a victim, but the mediator just made me open my eyes and think, what have I done in the last few years? And she says to Michael, I want to be independent, one way or another. And I feel like this independence word is Giuliana's way of saying, I don't want you to be in complete power, knowing that if ever we split up, I'm due next to nothing. And she's more or less threatening him, talking about modelling and suggesting that she's going to find a way to be independent. And Michael doesn't want that. Michael wants her by his side at home, probably where no other guys can really get to her, and he knows if she needs to find her own money, eventually she'll be off around the world, modelling, getting an American agency, and very probably getting some work. And that gives her the potential to leave him at some point. He doesn't want that, and you can tell by the look in his face. And Julia knows as well, she's got Micheal on the rocks. And so guys, I wanted to go back to what I was saying last week about the mediator and why my position was what it was. And I did go back and actually watch the scene again, and I'm still of the same mind. So I think when the mediator was talking to Giuliana and explaining to her, Giuliana, you have nothing at the moment, she said, Micheal, you can't just leave this girl with nothing. Mediator, we know this. But then she said to Giuliana, do you know how much rent costs? Do you know how much gas costs? And then she was going through all day-to-day costs such as food and heating and so on. That is not what Giuliana wants. She's suggesting that Micheal would pay her more or less a subsistence amount, just a living amount. It's clear to me that Giuliana wants a massive lump sum. She shouldn't be thinking about how much does gas cost? How much does rent cost? She should be thinking about, I've got enough money to get a little 2-bedroom apartment in the East Village, and I'll have enough alimony or enough of a one-off payment to actually sustain myself in a decent manner and not paying rent month to month. She probably wants to have a property outright. And like I said last week, it's not that I necessarily agree with this whole thing, but they are trading something. Micheal has his money, she has her looks, and that is what they are trading. So she doesn't want to trade her looks at the best time of her life for a subsistence amount, and that's the way that I feel the mediator was taking it. Micheal was saying, I want all the money and all the property and all the businesses and everything in my name, which of course is his right, but that's what you get to do when you're marrying someone who's your equal in terms of looks, in terms of age and so on. When you're marrying a model and someone as sought after as Giuliana, you gotta pay. You cannot just offer her rent. Rent shouldn't even be a thought of Giuliana's in the event of a divorce. And so that's how I felt the mediator did her dirty. There's no prenup on earth that says when we get divorced you get absolutely nothing. But I felt as if she was trying to minimise Giuliana's amount, especially by her saying, what have you earned in the last 2 years? She knows what she's earned in the last 2 years. Nothing. But Giuliana has taken these lemons and managed to make lemonade, because she knew when she said the word independence to Micheal and insinuated that she might go on to model, Micheal does not want her to be independent. Micheal wants her under his control. And whenever she mentions that word, it puts the fear of God into Micheal. I think the worst thing that could happen to Micheal would be that if Giuliana doesn't get a good settlement in this prenup, she would have her eyes open, looking for a richer or better option. And if she bounced, Micheal would look like the biggest idiot on earth. So he's battling to try and keep Giuliana and battling to make sure he doesn't look an idiot. And Giuliana even tells us, when I say this word independent, he gets mad, angry and upset and says he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. She knows what she's doing. Every time she says independent, she presses that red button. Micheal has control over everything, but he's not going to have control over me because men don't control me. And Giuliana tells Micheal, my time modelling is ticking away. And she went tick, tick, tick to better illustrate her point. Giuliana, he knows what you mean. And then Micheal tried to counter with, it's a completely different point. You modelling is nothing to do with what we were talking about in the prenup. Micheal, you know the two are intrinsically linked, because if Giuliana doesn't get a good settlement from you, she's saying she'll start modelling to make sure she creates an income for herself, to make sure she creates independence and wealth for herself. That's what she's saying to you. But what's unspoken, what is tacit in this, is that if she's modelling, she's almost certainly going to have access to other guys. And that's what Micheal doesn't want. And Giuliana knows exactly what she's doing. And to think last week, I was thinking, has this girl got game? Of course she has. She was wrong-footed for a second, but she's managed to pull it back. And Giuliana says, what happens if we split up tomorrow? You can just kick me out on the street, and what can I do? Nothing. And suddenly Micheal just decides, no prenup, forget about it. And later on, when talking to production, Micheal says, we're together in this and we love each other. So I thought about it and decided it's not something we need. More like Micheal, you had your hand forced. You got kind of scared and you realised that you were losing control. And you also realised that you messed up massively when you said to Giuliana previously, I'll look after you, and then didn't, and you were left with very little choice. And then Giuliana leans over and gives him 3 kisses on the cheek to reward him for real estate and businesses and cold hard cash. Later on, the producer producers ask her, do you trust Micheal? And she says, I don't trust anyone. And I guess to be fair, if you're very poor and you're from Brazil and you've had a very hard life, why should you? So some of you might be thinking at this point, Micheal's been played, but what's in his favour is that Giuliana now won't know what she'll get until she actually goes through with a divorce. And because Micheal owns a business, he can actually minimise the amount of profit his business makes, and so he's still in control. So although Julia thinks that she's won, I'm not so sure she has. Micheal has been wrong-footed to a point, but if he'd have sat down and said, right, you get A, B, C, D, E if we divorce, she could just decide, this is worth it to me, I'm getting divorced after 2 years. At least now, there will be a semblance of doubt in her mind. So guys, tell me what you think. Do you think Julia's played a masterstroke, or do you think she just stumbled across this luckily? And what would you have done in Micheal's shoes? I think that this way he plays with fire, because it's entirely possible that if he makes a lot of money in the next 5 to 10 years, she could walk out with half of it. I'm pretty sure that Micheal and Sarah have ring-fenced money for their kids anyway, but if they haven't, that would be another problem. There is definitely more to Giuliana than meets the eye. So guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also follow me on Twitter at Ebird99. You've been listening to Ebird Online, and I'll see you very soon. Ciao for now.